We'll call the City Council regular meeting for Monday, July the 2nd, 2007 to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please, Tracy.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnis.
Here.
Gisselbeck.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Meisenheimer.
Here.
Solberg. Walder.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
And York.
Here.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 1 is the approval of the minutes of the City Council meetings that were held on June the 18th and the 21st of 2007. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 2 is consideration of bids received for the Airport Wildlife Fence Improvement Project. Eric?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, we come before for authorization to approve bids from American Fence Company of Sioux Falls, South Dakota for the new fence line around the airport. On June 20th, we opened bids and we received 3 from American Fence Company of Sioux Falls, Custom Fence out of Utah, and Dakota Fence out of Fargo. American Fence Company came in at the lowest bid of $814,133.82. This is a FAA AIP grant, so the city will pay 3% of that amount. And I would request authorization or motion for American Fence Company to be awarded the contract.
Is there a motion then to approve the bid of American Fence Company? So moved. So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any additions, corrections, discussion?
Say, Eric, that was supposed to be a conditional award, is that correct, pending the funding?
Correct. Well, I guess at this point, we've been awarded the grant for the $1 million for the FAA. The only condition at that point would be for American Fence Company to give us a DBE goal, good faith effort to meet the DBE goal.
Okay.
Once we receive that good faith effort on the DBE goal, they can be awarded the contract. But thank you for correcting me on that, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. Any questions?
Just one
Yes.
statement. And the city only has to pay, is it 3%?
3%.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 3 is consideration of a contract for the solid waste recycling program. Mike Berger.
Thank you. The city received recycling contract proposals from two firms, Millennium of Sioux Falls and Dependable, our current contractor. The Dependable proposal is to continue with the existing contract while reducing the monthly fixed fee from $4,800 to $4,000 a month for savings to the city of $9,600, with the equation for revenue splitting remaining the same. Dependable will continue to collect the city departments and school systems at their expense, and they're also willing to assist us in implementing or developing an electronic waste program. The development of an electronic waste program would divert electronic tonnage away from the landfill to alternative disposal. Electronic waste would be anything with a circuit board in general. Dependable has committed to accepting residential electronic waste free of charge at their recycling center, and to also to participate in assisting us with developing an annual curbside collection program, most likely to precede citywide cleanup if we wish to do so. Additionally, Dependable has committed to spending up to $300 a month or $3,600 per year with a 50-50 match from the city to promote, advertise, and educate the public on both the recycling program and electronic waste program. Just to review a little bit, in 2006, Dependable processed and marketed 582 tons for the city, 582 tons, excuse me, and received $57,281, or approximately $98.40 a ton. Of that, the city received $16,991, or $29.20 per ton. In comparison, the Millennium proposal, under that proposal, the city would receive revenue based at the city receiving 40% of the Chicago index price for number 6 news for all of the tons, whether it be news or plastic or metal. The average 2006 number 6 news price that was provided to me by Millennium was approximately $50.83 per ton. So at 40%, the city would have received $20.30 per ton, which is $8.90 per ton less than what we would receive under the dependable proposal. In addition to the revenue split, also under the Millennium proposal, the city would have to pay additional transportation costs, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Also, in both Millennium proposals, the city would be required to collect the other city departments as well as the school system, which is again a service that Dependable now does for us. But under both Millennium proposals, the city would pay the cost of transporting the recycled materials to Sioux Falls at a rate of $2 per mile, and that's both directions, truck going down full, truck coming back empty, and would also have to pay a fuel surcharge. And the fuel surcharge is a surcharge that increases as the price of fuel increases. At $3 diesel, it's 23%. So in summary, considering the proposals from Dependable and Millennium using 2006 tonnage and the prices of last year, it's estimated that the Dependable proposal would have a lower cost to the city, would have had a lower cost of about just over $15,000. So we looked at it in a bunch of different ways. We looked at it using 2006 tonnage and 2006 prices. We estimated the number of semis it might take from 1 a week or 52 a year to 35 a year. And every way we looked at it, the Dependable seemed to have somewhat of a lower cost to us. So the recommendation is to continue to stay with Dependable for another 5 years. The current contract expires December 31st of 2007. And so we're recommending for another 5-year contract beginning January 1st of 2008. And this comes with the approval of the June 19th Finance Committee and the June 26th Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a motion then to approve the solid waste recycling program bid to Dependable Sanitation? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any questions or discussion?
Mike, I think it's always good to kind of remind the public, we talk about this at Public Works every once in a while, about how our recycling program in general is working. We've tried to make it such a user-friendly program, non-mandatory and easy to use, curbside pickup. It just disappears, but yet there's people that aren't using our recycling program. What kind of numbers do we have now of folks in Watertown using it?
Oh, the actual number of households that do participate is really a rough guess. Might be a third. You don't know because not everybody recycles paper and plastic. Some just do plastic, metal, cardboard. Others do mostly paper, and they don't set it out every week. So it would be somewhere between 25 and 33%, I would guess. Right now, the tonnages are kind of flat. Last year was our lowest year at 582 tons. And so what we're hoping to do with this new contract is to get out there and promote the program a little bit to encourage people to use it. And as you know, e-waste, electronic waste, is something that's probably coming over in Minnesota. They're already working to ban a lot of that type of material. So we want to be proactive and try and divert more tons by developing e-waste as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, to Mike? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Agenda item number 4 is authorization for the finance officer to disperse funds, $182,500 as the city's share of the acquisition of the site for the future National Guard Armory. Does the council have any questions in regards to the supporting documentation? Our share was based on an appraisal of $365,000 for 33-plus acres. The other half will be paid by the state legislature, our South Dakota legislature, and the appraisal price is good for 2 months, and so it's time that we pay up our share. So if I may have a motion then to approve the disbursement of the funds for the city's share of the acquisition of the site for the future National Guard Armory.
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Johnson. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5 is the motion to approve the bills and payroll and authorize payment. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Heller, seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item number 6 is the open. Is there anything to come before the open? If not, go to old business. Is there any old business that needs to be taken care of? If not, we'll move to new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Next, any liaison member reports that anyone would like to give? We will not need to go into executive session, but before we adjourn, I would like to call Alderman Wilson and Alderman Johnson out to the center. We have a special gift to give to them. Brad, in appreciation of service as Alderman from Ward E from 1999 to 2007, we'd like to present to you this key to the city and a plaque, and I want to thank you for your dedication of all the hours that you have given to the city, and it's just innumerable. I know that you've helped me a lot. I'm sure I tried your patience sometimes, but thank you for everything you've done, Brad.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to say a few words before you?
Well, just that it's been an honor to serve with all of you and a few other council members and to work with the city staff. And it's a great bunch of people that have worked hard to make this city a wonderful place. And I anticipate I will still be involved in a lot of projects and
Larry, I'd like to present this plaque to you for your tireless endeavors, and that goes from 2001 to 2007 as Alderman from Ward B. And again, Larry, one thing I learned about you early on was your very common sense approach to problems, and I always look to you for what a common sense approach would be to sometimes we have difficult issues to decide on, and you've been a very good person to have on our council. I want to thank you very much, Larry. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Would you like to say a little parting shot or anything?
No. Brad's words would echo mine with the exception that I thank the residents of Ward B for this opportunity to be able to serve for a couple of terms, and so I also hope to be involved.
Okay. Well, thank you both very much. Okay. Agenda item number 11 is a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck and seconded by Alderman Solberg. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. We'll have about a 5-minute break, and we will then begin with the new council meeting. So. Okay, we'll call the City Council regular meeting to order for Monday, July the 2nd, 2007. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, Tracy, please.
Arbogast.
Here?
Garnis.
Here.
Giselbeck. Here. Heller.
Here.
Meisenheimer.
Here.
Solberg.
Here.
Walder.
Here.
And York.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. The first agenda item is the oath of office that will be given to the council members for 4-year terms. Would be Ward A, Nancy York; Ward B, John Solom; Ward C, Alvin Meisenheimer; Ward D, Pat Walder; and Ward E, Russ Wilkins. And I would ask that the council would go out and stand in front of their names here, and City Attorney Stanton Fox will administer the oath.
Just the 5 who are going to be sworn in need to. No, just the 5 who are going to take the oath of office, Mayor, is fine. You all raise your right hand in and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 2 is the election of officers for the council, would be the council president and council vice president. I'll open the floor up for nominations for council president.
I nominate Gordon Reynolds.
Nomination of Gordon Garnos. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Heller. Any other nominations? If not, I guess we'll vote, well, there's no vote, I guess. How does that work, Stan? We just say it's unanimous for,
You can certainly just have the nomination cease and certainly announce that Mr. Garnos has been elected council
okay.
president.
Well, we'll close the nominations and we'll consider Mr. Garnos as the council president. Congratulations. Next, we'll have the election of the council vice president, and I'll open the floor for nominations.
I nominate Nancy York.
Nomination of Nancy York, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any other nominations? If not, I'll close the nominations, and we will consider Alderwoman Nancy York as the council vice president. Congratulations to you too, Nancy. Next is the agenda item number 3 is the appointment of the department heads. I would ask for council's authority to appoint the existing department heads. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Appointment of boards and commissions. I would like to have that, I'd like to do that in the first meeting in August, as I'm still checking on a couple names. Moving on to item number 5 is the approval of the standing council policies, and Tracy, you'll lead us through that.
Thank you. You do have a copy of the, I believe there are 7 standing policies that each time we seat a new council, we ask the council to reaffirm these policies. If you have any questions on any of the particulars here, I'd certainly be happy to address those. I don't intend to spend a lot of time going through them individually unless you would prefer that I do that.
Is there a motion then for the approval of the standing council policies?
I'll
So
second.
moved by Alderman Meisenheimer, seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Are there any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 6 is the first reading of ordinance number 07-20, creating Title 23, Stormwater, and including provisions prohibiting illicit discharges to the Watertown Separate Storm Sewer System. Rick?
Thank you, Mayor. And the agenda item almost describes verbatim of the title of this ordinance. Its first reading is ordinance 07-20, an ordinance creating Title 23 Stormwater and providing for prohibition of illicit discharges to the municipal separate storm sewer system of the city of Watertown. And if I might, just very briefly, even though this is the first reading, no action is necessary this evening, we intend to have the public hearing and the second reading and council action adopting this ordinance at our next meeting, July 16th. Recall that the Stormwater Phase 2 program consists of, by EPA standards, 6 minimum control measures: public education outreach, public participation involvement, and this, the third of the 6, is illicit discharge detection and elimination program. By federal law, we have to, by March 8th or March 10th, 2008, to meet the minimum requirements of the Stormwater Phase 2 program. One of the 4 things that we have to do in terms of illicit discharge detection and elimination is we have to effectively prohibit, through ordinance or other regulatory mechanism, non-stormwater discharges into the storm sewer system, and we need to implement appropriate enforcement procedures and actions. That is the intent of the ordinance that has been included in your agenda packet, and that we hope to adopt in a timely fashion on July 16th. Are there any other questions?
Rick, can you explain all of this at Public Works? I think our next meeting is next week, and sure appreciate it. This is the first time I've seen this.
This ordinance, we can certainly go through it again. We had CH2M Hill here a couple weeks ago, maybe up to 3 weeks ago, and we talked about the standard operating procedures for the illicit discharge and detection, the standard operating procedure, which is the other portion of this program that we have to implement. We also talked about, in general and concept only, this ordinance that we need to bring forward. We recall we also talked about the next one, which is control measure number 4, which is how do we address as a community, and we are required to by the Stormwater Phase 2 program, to implement an enforcement arm of our city organization to regulate and control the sediment and erosion that might occur from construction sites.
It seems to me this is something I'd like to know a lot more about before I start voting on it. So I'd appreciate it if you'd meet with us at Public Works.
We will do that.
next meeting.
Any other questions for Rick? There'll be no council action since this is the first reading, so thank you, Rick. Okay. Moving on to item number 7 is the preliminary approval of the conduit debt financing of the Great Plains Lutheran High School project, resolution number 07-36. Tracy, would you like to lead us through that?
Thank you. This resolution, as the title indicates, would give preliminary approval to the city's participation in this conduit debt financing for the benefit of Great Plains Lutheran High School project. In effect, this resolution will give preliminary approval and set a public hearing on that proposed financing. This does come with a recommendation for approval from the Finance Committee, and I believe there are representatives here this evening from Great Plains Lutheran. If you have particular questions for them or for me, we will certainly answer those.
With that being said, I'd like to have a motion for the approval of resolution 07-36.
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderwoman York. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Our agenda item number 8 is the Police Department K-9 program. Chief Vitek.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for allowing me to come before you this evening. We'd like to give you a short PowerPoint on the K-9 drug initiative that was started here way back in January of this year, and just kind of give you an overview of what's transpired since then. One of the first questions that was asked of myself when I came to Watertown about 2 years ago was, Chief, do we have a drug problem here in Watertown? And of course, being new to the area, my response was, well, gee, you know, I don't know. I said, but I'm kind of guessing that, you know, in 30 years of law enforcement and most communities that I've worked in, you know, there's evidence of drugs there, and I'm sure that we probably have some drugs here as well. So as a result of that, we started paying closely to our statistics, and we went back a year in 2004, and we basically tracked where our numbers were regarding arrests for drug offenses from anywhere from paraphernalia to possession charges, but all related to drugs here in Watertown between our juveniles and our adults. And as you can see, in 2004, our juveniles were 22 and adults were 71. Then we looked at 2005, and of course they increased significantly. And then in 2006, they've gone up yet still. if you look at those numbers and on a scale from 2004, 2005, and 2006, you can see that they've increased somewhat dramatically. Now, some of that, I might say, is probably because we're doing a better job of capturing that data. We're also doing a better job on our enforcement activity. I would like to bring to your attention three very significant drug arrests that the Watertown Police Department, in conjunction with some other agencies to include the DCI, in 2006 of September, the Watertown Police Department made the largest ever cocaine seizure of 7.2 ounces of cocaine with a street value of $16,000. That was pretty substantial bust for Watertown. And then again on December the 6th, once again, the detective unit was very instrumental in the seizure of over 16 pounds of marijuana and a Suburban, and we arrested 2 adults as a result of that. So you can see quite quickly that we're not talking about what we'd call street-level drugs, but this is certainly drugs that are being trafficked either to or through Watertown. And then again this year in January of 2005, the detectives, along with working with some other agencies, we intercepted and seized 40 pounds of marijuana that was mailed to an address here in Watertown. And as a result of that case, several adults were arrested. So I can say that yes, we do have drugs in Watertown, and we need to step up what we should be doing and what we need to be doing. We've taken at the Watertown Police Department a two-pronged approach, and I think it's crucial that we do that. It's incumbent upon any police department to have a very good prevention program and efforts in place, as well as the enforcement efforts in place. And as many of you know, that we've done a lot of community programs. We have Camp Chance that we began last year. We had 103 kids last year. This year, which it begins next week, we have, I believe, 111 kids that are signed up for it in Watertown. We have a very active DARE program, and we've incorporated that now into the middle school, and our hopes is to yet take it into the high school. We work very closely with Kelly Rumsa from Watertown Healthy Youth, involved in all types of activities. And of course, you know, we have the school resource officers, thanks to some grants, thanks to the school district, and of course to the city of Watertown to make that a reality. And then Bert Seifel, our high school resource officer, initiated a new program this year, that acronym called LOCK, which stands for Law Enforcement Officers, Communities, and Kids. And Bert and James have been very active with our kids throughout the summer. In fact, just last Friday evening, they had a movie night there at the high school, actually out in the open, and so it was quite a good event. We've partnered with MAP out of South Dakota, the Boys and Girls Club, the school district, and many other organizations, to include the Human Service Agency, to beef up, if you will, and increase our prevention efforts here in Watertown. But you know, that's not yet good enough, because we have to have the tools that we need, as you know and as the community knows, to fight the drugs here in Watertown. And one of those tools that we identified as a weakness is that we didn't have a canine. So we started doing a lot of research, and what we realized very quickly is that we were going to need the community's help, because it cost a lot of money to have a startup program for a canine unit. So that's what we did. We went to the Watertown community and we said, we need your help. In fact, the officers, a joint endeavor, we did a lot of research, and we said exactly what would it cost for one, what would it cost for two. And so we started working on an expense budget so that we knew what we needed to work toward. And essentially what we figured out is that all of those items that are itemized up there for you, that if we were going to do this, we needed about $59,157 to have 2 canine units here in Watertown. Now initially, our intent was to get one, but I got to tell you, the community response was so overwhelming and so supportive that it became very clear early on that the community was supporting this, and so we started looking at the possibility of 2 dogs. What did we do in our initiative? Well, in March, that's when we started, and we reached out to the community and we asked for their help. The Public Opinion featured an article on the initiative. KWAT featured an initiative on What's Up. We talked to various individuals, we talked to a lot of groups, we talked to a lot of businesses and organizations about the initiative. Our police explorers went out and held fundraisers. Hy-Vee had a Tip the Bagger, and I know some of you were involved in that, and we partnered with Thrivent to make that a reality. the Community Foundation. We reached out to them, to the Indries Family Fund. We submitted a letter to the National Association of Chiefs of Police located in Titusville, Florida, my old stomping ground, and we know that they had a matching program for $5,000 and that they would match anything that we raised up to $5,000 under their parameters. So we did that. And then last but not least, we went to Three Eagles Communications and we said, we need some help with this fundraiser. We've been selected by the National Association of Chiefs of Police. How are we going to raise this $5,000? And so, of course, they said, well, just come on down. We'll do it in 2 hours. And I said, yeah, right. No, not really. I believed them, but I didn't believe, and I'll tell you what they did. Then we got notification from the Attorney General's office. We asked them, we said, we need some help. You got this drug control fund, you know, and we've been making arrests here in Watertown. Can you give us some of that money to help us out, buy a car, maybe equip it some? And so then they came through too. Within 4 months, the Watertown Police Department received individual and business donations ranging from $3,000 from Sharp Chevrolet to $9 from Riley Schultz's piggy bank. At the Hy-Vee Tip the Bagger fundraiser, in conjunction with Thrivent, we raised $1,696.48. And boy, what a day that was, because we had cops out there and we had Thrivent people out there in red shirts, and we were just bagging groceries up a storm, having a blast. Our own explorers went out and put cans throughout the community, and as a result of their efforts, they raised $960. We asked the Watertown Community Foundation for help, and Bob Indries Family Fund came through, and Bob Indries said, you know what? Says, Joe, we want to buy you a dog. And I said, wow. So they gave us $7,000. The Attorney General came through and said, you know what? Said, I'm not going to give you everything that you asked for, but I'm going to give you a lot of what you asked for. And he gave us $36,350 to assist us with purchasing that K-9 vehicle and that equipment that was needed. And like I said, we got that notification from the National Association of Chiefs of Police, and they said, we'll match it up to $5,000. And then, of course, then the event last Thursday with Three Eagles. In 2 hours, thanks to Three Eagles radio station, thanks to those guys, and one of them sitting right here in the room today, Josh Y. In 2 hours, the community drove through, and I know many of you did that as well, and it was like a bank line, I'm going to tell you. As a matter of fact, I had conversation with some of the DCI agents the next day out in Pierre, and I told them about it. They said, well, what did you give them? I said, we didn't give them anything. They just came through and gave us money, and we raised $15,937. It was totally a high, I got to tell you. It was unbelievable. So the community spoke and the community acted, and the Watertown community gave $44,211, and I've never seen anything like it. So our donations, and awards, everything, $72,231.68. Our total startup cost for 2 dogs, vehicle, all of those things that we budgeted for are $59,157, which leaves us a balance of $13,074.68. On behalf of the Watertown Police Department and everybody that made this endeavor very much a successful reality, we want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. It's been very touching, and it's been very, very rewarding. And now we come before you to ask you for some council item, and of course I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Will you lead us through the ABC then, Joe?
I certainly will, Mayor. Well, I think I will. I left my agenda back. If you'll just call them
Okay.
out to me.
Item number A is the appropriation of the state grant to buy a car of $26,350. Is that correct, Tracy?
That's correct. Just a
Okay, is there-
motion to appropriate those funds would be in order.
Okay, is there a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. B is authorization to purchase the patrol car. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck, and seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item C is the authorization for the mayor to sign the contract with Casselberg Canine Training Center. Is there a motion to allow that? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief Vitek. Great job.
Yes, sir, thank you. And if you'll just give me a couple of more minutes, I'd just like to share with you, I met with, again, the radio station this morning, and one of the things that's been asked of me by the community is, what are we going to name these dogs? And I really didn't know how that process works, so I've done a little research. And so what we're thinking we're going to do is we're going to partner once again with that radio station, and we're going to ask the community to come up with those names. And then we're going to let those handlers select those names once they're chosen. And those individuals who win this contest, if you will be entitled to that photograph with that canine team and certainly lunch on the chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9 is the sale of surplus property. Tracy?
Thank you. The city's annual surplus property auction was held on Saturday, June 2nd. You've got a summary of the financial results of that auction in your packet. The net take after paying expenses of the sale came out to almost $17,600. There is no action required, but if you have questions, I'd try to answer those. The second item under this particular agenda item then, we do have 3 vehicles that are unclaimed vehicles coming from the police impound lot, and we're asking for your declaration of those 3 vehicles as surplus property and authorization to sell those at auction.
Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tracy. Agenda item number 10 is consideration of the increase in the mileage reimbursement rate to 37 cents per mile. Tracy?
Thank you. This does come with the recommendation of the Finance Committee. Early in June, I believe it was, we became aware that the state was increasing the state mileage reimbursement rate when employees use their personal vehicles on state business from the current 32 cents a mile to 37 cents a mile, and that became effective for the state employees as of July 1st, and the Finance Committee has recommended doing the same for city employees.
Is there a motion then to increase the mileage reimbursement? So moved by Alderwoman Walder, seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11 is an acknowledged notice of intent to conduct a raffle by the Cretan Council of the Knights of Columbus. I believe this is a football raffle that they have been holding in the fall, and so they're asking for acknowledgement. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12 is the open. Is there anything to come before the open? If not, we'll go under old business. And
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
There was one item on the open.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's on your desk there.
Okay.
Relating to the concrete work, or additional concrete work relative to the Uptown Streetscape project. And that, if you'll permit me, I'll
Yes.
introduce that topic. This would be in addition to the contract with Gray Construction of $1,633, and that would, as the letter indicates in your packet or on your open agenda, replace a chunk of concrete just on the very south end of City Hall that is in very bad shape. It's been patched up with some asphalt and is in need of replacement.
Is there a motion then to authorize this additional concrete work on the south side of the building? So moved by Alderman Heller, seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion? The reason why it's coming now is because they're going to be working on this side of the street. I believe on
I believe they were hoping to get started on this side of 2nd Street Friday.
Friday. So there just wasn't time, and it didn't make sense to have them come and then have to come back 3 weeks later. So it just made sense to do it all at once. So anyway, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tracy. Moving on to old business, I'm pleased to introduce to you the Executive Director of the Municipal League of Cities, Yvonne Taylor, who I had asked to come up and give us some information in regards to the different form of governments that are available and some other information. And of course, at any time, the council members can ask questions and then we'll kind of discuss it among ourselves. So, Yvonne?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having me here tonight. I've been asked to just kind of give you an overview, I guess, of the governmental options that are available to you. And I think for a city of your size, there are probably a limited number of statutory options available. But you need to keep in mind through everything that I say is that you're a home rule community, and that means you can design your government to fit whatever it is you want to do. And so you are not bound by the statutory forms of government the way a lot of our cities are, because you've taken the move to be home rule. And so you can make any kind of a melding of these forms or go doing something entirely different if that's what you choose to do, or you can stay exactly as you are. You're of course operating under the aldermanic form right now, and that was your choice under home rule to stay with that same form of government. I think the other typical form of government that would be available to a city of this size would be the commissioner form, and under that form you would have 3 to 5 commissioners elected at large. They elect one of their own to serve as the mayor. They serve for up to 5-year terms. That's determined by ordinance. The mayor in the commissioner form votes on all issues but has no veto. And so that would be a major change from the aldermanic form that you're currently operating on. And then the number, your size of your council would drop in half by my math. The commissioner form also has then the departments are divided up amongst the 4 commissioners. And so there's for instance, a public safety commissioner, there's a finance commissioner, and they have charge kind of over those areas of the city government. If you look at under the commissioner or aldermanic form, the option of a city manager exists, and that is a separate and distinct form of government. And so it takes an election. It takes an election to change your form of government. It would take an election to change your home rule charter. And it would take an election to hire a city manager. And it's a distinct form of government. The reason that it is that is because there is statutory power that is granted to a city manager that the city council or commission cannot mess with. Those are set out in statute, and that gives that person a level of autonomy that they would not have otherwise as the chief administrator of your city. The powers of the manager to see that laws are enforced, supervise the administration of affairs, make recommendations to the governing body, keep you advised of the financial conditions, prepare and submit the annual budget, see that all terms and conditions of contracts and franchises are carried forward, except when the governing body is considering the removal of the city manager participates in all of the meetings and participates in the discussion, but they do not vote. But they would participate almost exactly as if they were a member of the council. They sign all of the warrants, and they prepare ordinances and resolutions and bring discussions to the city council. And then you can prescribe additional duties. The governing body is required by state law to work through the city manager. And so you are allowed to make inquiries of the staff and the personnel of a city, but you're not allowed to give them direction. All direction has to flow through the city manager. And that's just a chain of command issue. And it provides the autonomy to that position that they wouldn't have otherwise. It is a contract, or if they can be hired for an indeterminate amount, but it takes a 30-day notice in order to release the person from the job. And so they do work at your command in that way. We have Aberdeen, Brookings, Vermilion, Yankton, and now Sturgis. And I believe those are the 5 city manager forms that we have in South Dakota. Yankton and Vermilion are 2 long-standing city managers. Not the personnel, but the form of government. They've had that forever. The rest of them are fairly new. In fact, Sturgis was just this summer held their election and decided to hire a city manager. And so there are 5 of those. Another option for cities that a few more are taking up is the option of having a city administrator. That differs from a city manager, and it is not a statutory form of government. There are no statutory powers for a city administrator. The job description for a city administrator is determined by the council that hires them. And then that can be changed by the council and adapted as you see fit. It takes some of the autonomy away from that position, but it leaves more control in the hands of the elected people. And we probably are going between 10 and 15 communities now that have hired administrators. And that's something that I think is we're going to see more and more of, and have seen more and more of in the last 10 years develop. In fact, in probably 10 years, we've gone from 1 to 15 or so. And so you are seeing quite a bit of that coming through the state in the medium to larger communities. Of the largest cities, Sioux Falls and Rapid City, Sioux Falls, under their home rule charter, has adopted their city government to be kind of a cross between the aldermanic and the commissioner form. They elect some of their members at large and some of their members by districts or wards. And then they have the mayor with the ability to veto, like the aldermanic form. Rapid City operates under the aldermanic form just like you do. They are not home rule. And they have a full-time mayor, but they do not have a full-time administrator or city manager. And so I guess with that, that's kind of the rundown of the basics of it, and I'd sure be happy to take questions.
Yvonne, this is huge for the city of Watertown. It's kind of too bad that you're tucked in and at the end of an agenda of a busy night, because this is a big deal for Watertown. I mean, it's a big deal whenever you start something that could ultimately change how the whole city is run. Have you walked other cities through the steps? Have you made presentations like this before, cities that have changed over? And I guess the committee that's being formed, that we want to have formed, that's going to really look into everything, is that most often a person from here, there, and everywhere in the community? Do you usually have an entity such as the Chamber of Commerce, or how are those committees usually formed, and who really puts that together?
Well, and if you're looking at an actual change of form of government, it depends on how you're going about
Well,
it.
if you're just looking at an overall picture of how are we doing, how's it look, is it time for a change?
I would think you would probably have an involvement from just the various sectors of the community and get input from all of the various entities.
Okay.
Yvonne, in your opinion, do you have an opinion as far as which form of government works best? Whether it's city manager, mayor, council?
I don't, because it's so dependent. Neither one of them is going to work without community support and without strong support of the council. And we've seen, especially with administrators, if a new administrator comes in and it wasn't fully supported, it generally will not work out. Where it's been a change that has been supported by the community and the council has agreed that this is the way to go, it works. And I would say that's true of either one of them, is you're going to have a lot of buy-in from your entire community, or neither one of them will be successful. But other than that, it's your decision as a community what works best for you and how you see that working. And with home rule, you really just have a range of options that make it really nice for you to consider things, because you're not bound by statute on these matters.
And with the city manager, it takes a majority to fire a city manager if one is in place, and
Yes.
that kind of takes away the representative type of government, doesn't it? Where the people, if they don't like a council person or mayor, they can vote them out of office, correct?
That is correct, and that would be one of the comments you'd hear about a city manager form, is that the elected people, but the elected people do command that city manager and have the complete ability to remove that person, and so you retain control like that, but it's not a direct control by the citizens over that person.
Yvonne, in creating a change in governance, what is the process?
If you're talking about a city manager, it takes a petition signed by 15%, and I can't remember if it's voters or last gubernatorial election, but it's a petition process from the citizens that comes to the city, and it calls an election on the matter, and then it takes a majority vote of the electorate.
And this cannot be created by the council, is that right?
No. I could not see that. In reviewing it today, I couldn't see that it could come from the council.
In creating the charter commission, is this done by the council?
charter commission? For the home rule charter review? I would have to go look at that. I'm sorry, I didn't review that today. I'd have to go look at that. And it may be determined more by your charter. Stanton probably has the answer at the top of his head.
It is, Gordon, as you and I discussed, the types of things that Yvonne's referring to, the manner in which we could amend the aldermanic form of government, which is spelled out in the charter, the manner in which we can do that to change the form of government or to change anything that's contained within the city's home rule charter is spelled out in here. I think you and I went over the 4 or 5 different ways that it could be accomplished, but to Yvonne's point, it would still, at the end of the day, require an election.
I think the things that we're talking about now is sort of putting the cart before the horse. The first process would be the committee that's going to look at the whole process, correct? And that committee is usually appointed by the council, is that right?
I think
Or how does that?
I think that would. I don't think that there would be any.
You said from different sectors of the community.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be a standard answer as to how that came
Okay.
up, but because it requires such community support, I think you'd be wise to make that a pretty broad spectrum of community members.
Thank you.
One minor point here. I went online and checked with each one of the cities and that, and it still shows Aberdeen as a mayor council.
And when they adopted their home rule charter, I believe they created a way to transition into it. And so they currently have their mayor serving as the city manager. And so he's kind of doing double duty right now until they get that transition point.
Which form of government would actually be more cost effective than the other, or do they run about the same?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I think that depends on the size of the city and the budget and the financial resources and the financial demands more than it does the form of government. They would operate, I would think. You know, your council meetings might be 5 people cheaper, but I don't think it would be a substantial savings.
Any other questions for Yvonne?
To hire a city manager is expensive, right?
You would probably be looking at a very minimum of $80,000 to $90,000.
And if they're any good, they'll move on and leave us, right?
I wouldn't say that. We've had some long-standing ones. Brookings just hired their former police chief a year or so back to serve as their city manager, and so it really depends on the situation. There were 2 in Yankton and Vermillion that had stayed a long time. They happened to have transitioned out in the last couple of years, but.
We have representatives of the chamber and Focus Watertown, and I wonder if any of them, either one of you have any questions for Yvonne.
Anyone in the audience want to ask a question or comment? Okay. Any council members have any further questions for Yvonne?
I got one
Yes.
other. I researched a little bit on Brookings, and I understand they went through 3 city managers before they finally hired the chief of police, or the retired chief of police.
Yeah, I think he may be their third, but I think he's their third. And they did a wholesale change when they did it. They did the whole different council, different management, different wholesale change, which was a bigger change for them than one position.
Was that by election then?
Yes.
When there is a city manager, does this relieve any duties of department heads?
They would, instead of reporting to the council or however you have it set up here, they would be more responsible to the city manager. The city manager takes on the ability to appoint officials, and it's laid out in statute which of positions are appointed by the council and which are appointed by the manager, but the majority of them are going to be the manager, including boards and commissions, with exceptions in statute for what's retained by the council.
Any other questions or comments? Any direction the council wants to go? Any
Well, I think we've heard pretty loud and clear from the community, from our discussions before, that it never hurts to look at something. The discussion should always be on the front burner and active. And with that in mind, I think it's time that we appoint a group, put together a group to look into whatever they might have to offer us.
Nancy, this may be a little ahead of time. I really need to remove or ask for a motion or make a motion to remove from the table the motion I made at the May 7th meeting, tabling the discussion of this very charter commission. And so I hereby so move.
Stan, can you help me?
Well, I think based on the earlier opinion that I gave the council with regard to the appropriateness of the previous motion that Mr. Garnis just referred to, I don't know that it's necessary to remove anything off the table to the extent you, Mayor, as chair, ruled the previous motion and the action that followed out of order. It wouldn't be necessary to take it off the table. I don't know that you've ever formally made that declaration that you found the previous motion to be out of order. You asked for my opinion and I gave it, but I think as chair you could certainly direct Mr. Garnis that the motion he just made isn't necessary because the previous motion or the previous action he's referring to wasn't in order. That make any sense?
Sure, clear as mud. Okay, very good. So where do we?
To me,
You need to make a decision, Mr. Mayor, about whether or not Mr. Garnis' motion that he just made is even necessary or relevant. But you first need to make a determination whether the previous motion was even appropriate or in order. And I don't think you've ever formally taken a position.
Based on what you've spoken to us regards to this motion, that it not being necessary, then that we'll consider Gordy's motion then not necessary.
You can rule the motion you just made out of order, and then you can ask the council if they want to actually make a motion to do what Mrs. York just referred to.
Okay, so Gordy, I declare your motion out of order, and I ask for council direction as to how they would like for us to proceed now.
Once again, I'll make it into the form of a motion. I would make a motion that the council proceed with putting together a committee to study the new form of government.
And who do you want to be on this committee?
Well, we don't have to give name, I mean, naturally, it's going to take some time to put that committee together. I don't.
Okay, so what you're making a motion is that we proceed with the appointment of a committee, the council. Okay.
I may not be correct here either, but rather than a committee, isn't this a charter commission that we're talking about?
Stanton?
Thank you, Mayor. If I could, I know that we were discussing a little bit ago about ways that we could amend the charter that spells out the form of government. And I think the provision that Mrs. York you're alluding to is in subsection C in section 901, which says that this charter, the one the voters approved years ago, can be amended in the following manner: by a report of a charter commission created by ordinance. So I think what the council, what your motion in theory is suggesting is that the council adopt an ordinance creating a charter commission to review the form of government and report back. They may report back, as you suggested, it ain't broke, there's nothing to fix, but I do think that following the strict letter of the charter that's in place, that we need to create a charter commission by ordinance. And I'll look for your direction, how you want that ordinance to read, but I would prepare that for your approval. But we first need to adopt that ordinance, and I would like some idea of what language you'd like included in there, how long it's going to be, together, when it's to report back, what do you want it to report on, and I can reduce all of that to writing in an ordinance for you guys to consider.
Well, then why don't we have some discussion before we proceed with the motion? So that we know what everybody is thinking.
I would certainly appreciate the policy direction for what you want this charter commission to do, because we need to spell it out in an ordinance so your expectations met by the commission.
Very good, Stan. Council, where would
Well, I was on the Charter Commission before, and I don't know exactly who appointed everybody. I think the mayor did. And if I could, I'd like to suggest that we ask those who served on that initial Charter Commission to serve again, those who want to do that. when they are to report or what they're to look into. I don't know how to spell that all out for Stanton. I suppose the logical way to word it, Stanton, would be that the Charter Commission, whoever that might be, if the mayor decides to appoint those former members, would look into the different forms of government and make a report back to the city council whether or not an election is necessary or requested by that Charter Commission in 6 months' time. You know, just a guess. I don't know how else to put that in.
Mr. Heller, who were the members of the commission before?
Well, it was a large group. I know there were the one that I remember for sure was the former mayor, and I also remember Jim Roby was on it, and there were a bunch of business people on it. I'm not sure if I was the only council member on there or not, but I might have been. I don't remember for sure because we met for probably a year's time back then when we were deciding whether to go to self-rule or not. So, and other than that, I can't tell you, Nancy. I'm sure in the archives someplace there's a list of all of the former members of that Charter Commission.
Well, as Yvonne said, I think it's important that we have a cross-section from the community, so I'd certainly like to see some thought put into the appointment of that commission, whether that's headed up by the chamber or if it's headed up by individuals all over the place. I don't feel comfortable just voting on a vague committee that we don't know the names of.
Agree, and I don't think we should vote on anything tonight.
Very good. Then I think that what we may need to do is to have the council members that wish to be on some kind of a committee to get an idea of who it is that we would want on this committee. Maybe get in touch with me, and then we can, if we're a quorum, we'll have a public meeting. If not, we'll just have our own meeting. So you can, whoever wants to be on that can get in touch with me later, and we'll proceed. Very good, Stan. Anything we did illegal, Stan?
No parliamentary shenanigans, but I would like to make a suggestion that maybe what I could do is, with your direction, go ahead and take a stab at a very draft form of an ordinance that basically leaves some blanks in there that I'm going to suggest that you folks as a group fill in with regard to composition of members, length of service of the commission, what you want them to examine, those kinds of things. I think from tonight's discussion I have a pretty good idea. What I'd like to do is come up with a very loosely worded ordinance format that hopefully you folks could fill in the blanks for.
Hopefully we'll be able to get back. I'm thinking, we'll probably meet a few times and then either try to get it on the agenda for the next council meeting or else the first meeting in August.
I'll try to get the form in committee agendas for you folks to review and maybe discuss a little greater length at the committee.
Don't we have a motion on the floor?
There was never a second.
No, Mr. Garnis, I did not make a motion.
Okay. Are we clear, Stan, to go forward? Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving on then to item number 14 is new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Are there any liaison member reports?
Mayor, I would like to point out
Yes.
that on your desk tonight, I did put a CD for each of you to take home and for bedtime reading tonight. A copy of our comprehensive annual financial report for 2006 that does include the auditor's report on the city for that our last calendar year. And if you read nothing else in the entire book of 136 pages, please do pop that CD into your computer and open it up and take a look at the very last page, which is the summary of the auditor's results. And that, I think, will give you a very brief synopsis of everything that's in here. But there's certainly a wealth of financial information relative to the city's financial performance, and financial position at the end of 2006. But the summary of the auditor's findings are, I think you'll be pleased to see that it's just absolutely squeaky clean. They have no findings in the report whatsoever. The problems that were pointed out, one singular, that was a finding last audit report has been corrected. And so we're certainly very happy to have that quality of a report, and even happier to have the auditors gone. But
Thank you, Tracy. Very good job. We will need to go in executive session in regards to some contract negotiations, and I anticipate council taking action when we reconvene. So if I could have a motion then for executive session? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. All in favor say aye. Opposed? We will go into executive session. Carried. Next on the agenda is I'd like to have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement, the Southern Bypass Agreement with the South Dakota Department of Transportation with the terms that were outlined in the executive session. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. No other issues to come before the council. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.